Theseus asked the river why he groaned, and how he happened to have lost his horn, and after binding up his hair in reeds, Achelous began to answer him. The task you set before me is a sad one, for who indeed takes pleasure in recalling the battles he has lost? Nevertheless, I will recount this story as it happened, because there is less shame in being beaten than honor in my being a contender, and solace to have lost to such a hero. You may have heard the name of Deianira, at one time the most beautiful of maidens, and a great cause of jealousy among her many suitors. When all of us had entered the palace of her father, I spoke up. "Accept me as your son-in-law, Oeneus," and Hercules beside me said the same. The others yielded to the two of us. He spoke first, repeating the old story of how he was the son of Jupiter, and boasting of the fame of his great labors, all undertaken by the command of Juno. Then it was my turn. I responded, saying, "It is indecent for a god to yield before a mortal," for at that time Hercules had not yet been transformed into a god. "In me you have the master of the streams that through your realm meander. I will be one of your own, no distant son-in-law, a countryman and part of your own kingdom. Juno doesn't hate me, that is true, and I was never forced into her service. I only hope this won't be held against me. And as for that paternity you boast of, great Hercules, why, you must take your choice. Either it's false that Jupiter's your father, or else it's true that you're a bastard born. You seek a father in your mother's sin. Which will you have, then, son of Alcmena, a fictive parent, or a shameful birth?" Long after I had finished speaking, he still glowered at me, smoldering with rage, and displaying little self-control, replied, "Your tongue is far more dexterous than mine, but just as long as I can win with punches, I'll let you have the victory with words." Then he advanced upon me, savagely, and after such big talk, I would have been dishonored to fall back. I shed my green robe and raised my hands, and crouching took my stance in opposition, with my arms wide spread, and so prepared myself to wrestle with him. He tosses a handful of dust in my direction, and he himself takes on its tawny color. He lunges then and feints as though to seize me by the neck, or legs, or private parts, attacking everywhere. He seeks in vain. I am defended by my weightiness, not otherwise than when a seaside bluff, assaulted by the waves that pound against it, endures, protected by its mighty bulk. We separate for just a little while, and then we come together once again, each holding firm and neither backing down, and stood there toe to toe, fingers knotted, breast against breast, and forehead pressed to forehead. I've seen two mighty bulls rush at each other in competition for the herd's prize heifer. The rest of the herd all look on in terror, not knowing which contender will achieve the victory, and with it gain a realm. 3 times, without success, Hercules strives to push my breast away from his. The 4th, he knocks away my arms and breaks my hold, and as I tumble forward off balance, I have to tell this just the way it happened, gives me a slap that turns me all around, and then comes down on me with all his weight. If you can credit this, I do not seek to garner glory by exaggeration. I felt I had a mountain on my back. I barely had the strength to work my arms. The sweat was pouring off them, under his, and barely freed myself from his fierce grip. He pressed against me as I gasped for breath, and kept me from recovering my strength, then got me in a stranglehold, my knees connected with the earth, and I ate dust. Clearly deficient in the manly virtues, I opted to try trickery instead, and changing to a snake, I glided out of his strong grip. But after I had wound my body up into tight coils and showed him my forked tongue and hissed a bit, Hercules laughed and ridiculed my arts. "While I was in the cradle I whipped snakes. Supposing you surpass the lot of them, what portion of the many-headed Hydra will you, a single serpent, prove to be, Achelous? The blows I dealt that beast just strengthened it. No sooner did I sever one of its heads than 2 more took its place. This creature, branching out with serpents sprung from death, delighted in destruction. Yes, I overwhelmed the monster, and I diced it. What do you think will happen in your case? Why, even as a snake you're an impostor, fighting with borrowed weapons in a form that is not yours, and subject to recall." He spoke and wrapped his fingers like thick chains around my throat, and dug in with his thumbs, gripped by those pincers I was passing out, and fought to get his digits off my throat. So, since I had been vanquished as a snake, the only refuge left was my third form, that of a raging bull, and thus transformed in all my parts, I now renewed the struggle. He got his arms around my neck again, and dragged his heels beside me as I galloped, until he pushed my horns down to the ground and plowed my poor head deep into the dirt. Nor was this all. Grasping my rigid horn in his right hand, and cruelly breaking it, he tore it from my mutilated forehead. The Naiads immortalized this incident, filling my horn with fruit and fragrant flowers, known as the cornucopia. It now enriches the sweet goddess of abundance. He finished speaking, and a nymph stepped up, dressed like Diana, with her hair unbound, one of his attendants, who produced their second course out of that horn of plenty, the ripe fruit which are bountiful in autumn. The sun appeared, and as the mountain tops were touched by its first rays, the young men left, even before the river had found peace and the flood-driven waters had subsided. Achelous concealed his rustic looks and mutilated brow beneath the waves.